Wuthering Waves, the game I have been waiting for a very long time. I've been a Genshin player for over 3 years now, and like any Genshin player with at least half a brain, I'm not blind to all the major issues that Genshin has. I say that to go ahead and let you know that I'm not some dumbass Genshin shill that's just going to shit all over WuWa just to make myself or the community feel better about the game we've spent countless amounts of time and money on. And since Wuthering Waves has launched, I've clocked at least over 50 hours of game time and have been relentlessly grinding to the point that I'm Union level 34, so I've pretty much experienced all there is to offer at launch. And whether you like it or not, I'm going to be comparing this game to Genshin a lot, because this is Genshin's direct competition, so if that's a problem for you, womp womp, I guess. Since this is a gacha game, that's kind of the elephant in the room. Gacha systems are usually pretty awful, but in WuWa's case, it's really not. The banner layout is similar to Genshin, but not identical. There's limited character and weapon banners and standard character and weapon banners. All character and weapon banners are separated, which is really fucking nice, if I'm being honest. Character banners are 50/50s, whereas weapon banners are guaranteed, and hard pity is at 80. That's already more generous than Genshin. Not to mention the beginner convene, where you are guaranteed a 5-star within 50 pulls, and once you get that 5-star, you get to pick which one you get next on a choice convene. So already, you have 2 guaranteed 5-stars, one of which you got to pick. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm bashing all over Genshin or anything, but it kind of just speaks for itself, doesn't it? You are going to have a 5-star in WuWa within a few hours of game time. Like I mentioned, I've been grinding non-stop and probably should touch some grass, but I'm currently sitting at 110 limited pulls waiting for Mommy Yinlin. Can I get an amen, boys? And I already spent 20 to pull Donjin, so roughly 130 limited pulls, and I still have some other activities and exploration to do, and there's going to be events where I can get even more. And all of that was done completely free to play. And one of the big things I noticed is the amount of Asterite you get from world chests versus the amount of primos you get in Genshin. You get anywhere from 10 to 40 Asterite depending on the chest's rarity, and the highest you get in Genshin is 10. Out of a luxurious chest. So I'd say the economy is pretty good so far. However, that doesn't mean it's perfect. One thing I'm definitely feeling right now is a standard pull drought, which really sucks because I really want a 5-star standard weapon, but it's pretty much impossible to get unless I get really lucky because I'm not spending Asterite on standard pulls because I'm not an idiot. However, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. You can get more pulls at incremented levels and a free standard banner weapon at Union level 45, but that's kind of far off because I've completed almost every single quest except for a very small few, maybe 1 or 2. So getting XP is going to be a really slow burn, so I might not see that weapon for a little while. Now I know up to this point, everything more or less is looking really good, but this is where we get to WuWa's biggest weak point. The story content is okay at best, and I know that's just my opinion, but I have legitimate reasoning to back it up. While the story right itself may be just fine, the way it's conveyed in the actual content is not very good, especially the voice acting. Now, I'm not bashing the voice actors themselves, unless of course they just didn't try because rent wasn't due yet, but maybe the direction they were given was off, or maybe they weren't given any context about the scenes they were actually in. Because in a lot of places, the tone of the voice acting does not fit what's actually happening on screen. It's too monotone in some places while being too upbeat and expressive in others. It just doesn't make sense. Now, obviously, this is an English localization issue because I've heard the Chinese and Japanese voiceovers are significantly better, which really is a shame because I don't doubt that the story is probably really good. It's just communicated really poorly. And just overall, the English localization needs some work. Some words in the text seem off, like maybe they were mistranslated. Also, some of the voice lines just abruptly cut off, like the Rover's Idol animation.
There are times when the unknown harbors hope. Like how I can never know what else this power.
Now here's what actually matters, the core gameplay, because this is what you're going to be doing like 99% of the time. Let's start with the combat. This combat system is so damn good, dude, and anyone who says this shit is boring is definitely a Genshin shill or just mentally ill, but to be honest, those are kind of the same thing. Because there is no denying this is way more fun and engaging than Genshin's simple rotations. There's perfect dodging, parrying, intro and outro skills, and it all meshes together so perfectly. You feel like such a badass with this combat system. And then next you have building your characters, which you'll do with echoes. And echoes are the love child of Genshin's artifacts and Pokemon, and yes, it is just as amazing as it sounds. When you kill a mob, it has a chance to leave behind an echo, which you can take and equip like an artifact. It has main and substats, you can level it up, they have set bonuses, etc, etc. But what makes this so much better is whatever echo you have equipped in your first slot, you can transform into mid-combat to do a special ability. Or you can just summon them and stare deeply into their soul or something, I don't know, whatever you weird people get up to. But you'll probably be echo hunting a lot, and honestly, it's really fun simply because the combat is so entertaining. Plus, there's literally shinies in this game. You can actually shiny hunt in Wuthering Waves. And farming echoes doesn't consume Waveplates, which is basically the equivalent of Resin, but there's a bit of a catch with that. There's a few catches with Waveplates. The first one is with echoes. While getting the echoes themselves doesn't cost anything, leveling them up will, because you can only level them up with a special material that's only obtainable through limited sources or Waveplate consumption, which I think is really fucking stupid, but unfortunately, I understand why they did it. The other catch is Waveplate capacity. It's really easy to look at this and say, oh wow, that's higher than Genshin's is, but that's kind of a bait because the cost to claim rewards from activities is higher than it is in Genshin. A boss costs 40 resin in Genshin, while it costs 60 Waveplates in WuWa. And because of that, the daily energy economy in these games feels roughly the same, which really sucks because Genshin's resin economy is not very enjoyable, to say the least. WuWa's late game right off rip here outshines Genshin's completely because Genshin doesn't really have an endgame, which is kind of insane to think about because this is like the one thing people have been asking for at Genshin for like how long now? But WuWa has Tower of Adversity, which is basically the Abyss equivalent, except there's more stuff to do in it. And it also has Calamity Mode bosses, which are roided out versions of the world bosses that are just little assholes. These guys usually take a couple tries to beat. Also, there's the Illusory Realm, which is basically like Simulated Universe from HSR, except it's with this amazing combat system, so it's extremely fun. So as of right now, WuWa basically has 3 times the endgame Genshin has, and we're only in 1.0. One thing that's hard to miss is all the criticism going around about WuWa. It's getting pretty harsh treatment from a lot of people, mostly in the Genshin fandom, go figure. One of those being the world isn't pretty enough, but it very much is in certain places. This world has variety even though it's not terribly big yet. It's not like Genshin where it's mostly just bright colors everywhere, which does look really beautiful, but it's very one note. I wouldn't say this world isn't beautiful, it's just different. Another being the characters looking bland, which I just think is an overall L take. I personally think the characters look absolutely amazing, but this one is really just a matter of opinion. And the last big one is the performance issues, and this one is very real. Although I haven't personally had many at all, I could definitely understand the frustration of not being able to play your favorite game. This game is definitely harder to run than Genshin is, but Kuro has proven to be an amazing dev that actually listens to their community. Imagine that. They've made several changes to WuWa throughout its development based on our feedback alone. And any issues we've been having in-game, they've been very fast to compensate us for, so much so that it almost feels unfair. If Kuro keeps being as generous and caring to its players as it is right now, things can really only go up from here. So if we take a step back and look at WuWa for what it's worth, most of the things that really matter between WuWa and Genshin WuWa does better. While Genshin is better on the story side, it's had plenty of updates to make that story actually good, and WuWa's gameplay is infinitely more fun, which I think is what's going to matter in the long run. Little stuff like the localization issues can be easily ironed out, and to be honest, don't really hinder my enjoyment of the game. If there's one thing both WuWa and Genshin need to do is fix their damn daily energy, because I think we can all agree how annoying it is. But honestly, the thing I'm excited for most is the competition that WuWa is going to bring to Genshin, which will hopefully just end up making both games better in the long run. Because at the end of the day, that's all we can really hope for, because it'll just make the gacha space a much better one.